Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. In the previous video to this one, we explored the out of bounds region north of Not Cry, and this is presumably an upcoming region for one of the future lunar versions in Genshin Impact. Now, given the popularity of that video, I thought it might be interesting to explore out of bounds once again, but in the surrounding region. There's not a lot to see, but if you're interested, please do stick around. So for a bit of context, here is the overall map in Teyvat, and the purple area is where we've explored in the previous video. So today we're going to explore some of the orange pieces, starting from the left and working clockwise around, and then the area that is circled with Fontaine we'll explore in a later video. The purple area that I've marked is an out of bounds area, but it's mostly just placeholder text, so there is nothing, and the black line denotes the playable boundary to which your character can go, and no further than that, but the Wave Rider can obviously go beyond that. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll mostly be taking the Wave Rider. I just so happen to have one nearby in Natlan. I wonder how that could have happened, but in any case, one thing that I can confirm is that to the left of the Hishi Island there is really nothing, so we're just going to go straight all the way to that orange island that I showed you on the map. And as you can see here, we are with Paimon, we're out of bounds. I've just sped up the footage because it can be a bit annoying. You can see there on the map where I am more or less, and there is the map boundary there in the background. So with this kind of bit of positioning so that you guys also know exactly where I am on the map, let's see what is in here. And well, there's nothing. It's just placeholder text. It's interesting that the placeholder text has some sort of shape with mountains, but I think this is just typically something that is so far out in the distance. It's just something one of the interns at Hoya would probably just be putting there, and they'd probably just remove this in the future. So the one island, we didn't really find anything worthwhile to see. Moving on to the next island, there's also not really a lot to see except for the interesting way in which they kind of texture the landscape to give you certain illusions if you look at this from a distance. I always find it very, very fun or interesting to note that you're standing far away, you're seeing this thing far away, and it's all just about what type of illusion they kind of give you. So it's interesting from that perspective, but in terms of what's actually out here, there really is nothing. It would be quite cool though. I wish the Genshin devs would just put up a board or a plaque or something that's just like a bit of an Easter egg for people that go out of bounds. Imagine you go to one of these islands and you hit a sign and you can interact with the sign and it says, "We are watching you," something really, really scary from the Hoyo devs. That'd be a really, really amazing, but I've been going out of bounds since forever in Genshin, over 3 years. Since before Musashi broke the whole, the Genshin's biggest secret kind of leak thing, and I can promise you, I've never seen anything interesting. So we also have that kind of case. In any case, there is something really interesting about the next area. So whilst again it might seem that, hey, this is another big mountain area and we're just going to get more and more textures, it actually surprised me that there is a solid piece of land in the middle there. And what's really interesting is okay, well, why would they put a solid block there when they could have just used more and more textures? So this could hint potentially at a future playable area, because when you go out of bounds, because I've been doing this since forever, typically they would always have these placeholders, and the moment you see any solid texture that you can hit or bump, that is a very good sign that sometimes they might actually put physical land or a physical playable area there. So this could potentially be something in a Lunar version 5 or 6. I don't know. I'm just going to call it 5. I think that might be what's going to come up, but we've got no idea. So yeah, you can see I physically bumped into this. Now you might ask the question, well, can't you just climb out of the Wave Rider and just, climb on top of this so that we can see the sunset? And the answer is obviously I cannot, and I'll explain why. So earlier when I showed you the picture of the Teyvat map, there was this little black line, and what I meant by that black line was the fact that at a certain point, if you walk with a character, outside of a Wave Rider or a Saurian, your character will immediately be put into the down state. So that is the limit of the playable boundary for your character. So this line here is typically a death barrier, and if you've noticed Farina's health, it went from 37 to 32, so basically the hydro resonance also kind of kicked out. And that's also just interestingly enough how the game works. When you go too far outside of the Paimon barrier, you basically get stuck. And one interesting fun fact is, if your Wave Rider is already too far out, your Wave Rider is also going to then break when you come back into Teyvat. Now this isn't the normal behavior that we were used to in the past, because in the past what would happen is, if you went too far out, typically beyond like these playable lines, you typically find that you'd lose control over the Wave Rider and it would just infinitely go off in one direction. Now sometimes you could get control. It was a very kind of interesting thing, and recently in Genshin Impact, if you do try to go outside of the Paimon barrier without glitching, you'll find that effectively you automatically exit like from the Wave Rider. In any case, I exited here with Farina, and interestingly enough, just to kind of confirm my suspicions with this kind of broken state, you'll notice that Farina is going to hop out of the Wave Rider again, and then you'll see that just as I go past the Wave Rider, Farina is also then going to be downed, like I showcased earlier. There you go. And effectively this just tells you that that is the limit of the playable map. So despite the fact that we can go as far out as we can here, there's not really much more to do, and you'll also notice just how far beyond the map we are. So you can see, because of everything glitched, there we go, we are just literally beyond what you can even see. You have to like track the map to get to where we are on it. But yeah, it's just interesting that Genshin does have a playable boundary. I did cover this in previous videos, but you can go beyond this with a Kukasaur and as well as a Wave Rider. But then the moment you let go of your character, you're instantly going to be down, because it's just like a teleport barrier, which isn't active when you're in the Paimon barrier glitch. In any case, this is another view just with Farina to show you what is within the playable boundaries. So despite the fact that there was another big tall mountainous area, we couldn't actually get to that. So what you saw here instead is Farina at the edge of where you could play, and then we just fell off down below the map. And as you can see, there's nothing really hidden. There's no secret area that the Genshin devs is like kind of keeping out for us. So that's kind of that. And obviously once you return back into the game, you are auto teleported back to Springvale, which is one of those teleporters of last resort that the game puts in, if I can put it in air quotes. In any case, we can just round or start ending off the video. This is just the last part of the little orange islands I'm going to explore. Once again, nothing really interesting to see here. You'll just find that there's some rocks and then there's some texture. So this is obviously still very much a work in progress. I say that in air quotes because typically the Genshin devs are 6 to 9 months ahead of where we currently are at. So this is probably looking at what they did last year in an older version of the game that they're currently developing. So yeah, that is pretty much the majority of it. And I think I'm just going to take this opportunity with some of the background footage to tell you guys that it takes a lot of effort to do these kinds of videos, to go out of bounds. Typically, Hoyo doesn't mind you showing glitches. A lot of other channels like Mokrame and, for instance, Musashi also show glitches even with UIDs on, and Hoyo doesn't seem to really mind. And if you look at their terms of service, they often say you're not supposed to show how the glitch is done. That's typically the thing. You're not supposed to change memory or anything, and that would make the gameplay unfair, and we do none of that. So in this case, we just use methods that are available to anyone on the current live version of the game, and anyone can theoretically do this. So the onus is actually on Hoyo to patch these sorts of things. And obviously, if they do contact me, and they obviously do see these videos, by the way, they can ask and I can show them how this is done, but that's up to Hoyo to reach out. But until such a time, we're definitely going to have a lot of fun exploring Out of Bounds, and hopefully you guys found this a bit interesting. In the next video, we'll explore the Isas Mountain in Fontaine Out of Bounds, as well as some of the surrounding videos. Well, okay, not the next video, but in some of the upcoming videos. If you've been watching until this time, thank you so much for your patience and your support. Keep well. Cheers.